Welcome to another great episode of The Caption Life, a podcast about how comics and pop culture impact life and society, and vice versa. Coming to you from deep in the heart of Texas, I'm Kevin, and joining me as always is my good friend Sean in Indiana.
Hey everyone, how you doing?
Hey, before we go full super soldier on this episode, please hit that subscribe button on whatever podcast platform you're listening to, and follow us on social media at Caption Life on both Twitter and Instagram. You can also find more info about us and past episodes at podpage.com/thecaptionlife. Okay, we're bringing you a very special episode tonight to chat about the season finale of The Falcon and Winter Soldier. Since it's the finale aired yesterday and it's fresh in our memory, we thought we'd sit down and share our thoughts on what we saw, what we liked, and maybe what we didn't. So we'll just kick things off with a little ping pong conversation, a little discussion. Sean, tell me what you thought. What was your big impression?
Yeah, so I really loved the series. I thought this was a fantastic series. It actually really surprised me because I did not think it was going to be as great as it was. So coming off the heels of WandaVision, I thought I was going to have a hard time doing really well because WandaVision, I think, was just something that everyone was really excited for a number of reasons and really loved because it had a lot of implications for the MCU. I know that you and I had, texted each other whenever we watched an episode and just talked about like how great it was. And it seems like every episode was like better than the last one and everything. So I just thought that Falcon and Winter Soldier was going to have a hard time following up on that, but it actually like just blew me out of the water. And I feel like it's actually, I love that show a lot more than WandaVision. I love WandaVision. So I thought it was a really great series overall. And I know we'll get into this a little bit later, but I thought it had some really great themes for everyone who watches it to really participate in the conversation and kind of think about it, and that it presents these topics in a really insightful way that we probably haven't seen in the MCU in any other way. So like, the prominent themes about, PTSD and veterans affairs, racism, good and evil type of things, things like that. And so I thought they did a really good job of carrying that conversation through and having a great perspective and a great way to present that to the audience that I thought was really impactful. Because I know after every episode I watched, I would go on social media like Twitter or TikTok and see what people were saying about it. And I felt like it started conversations that we probably never had about the MCU in the past. And I think it's a really good thing. So there are a couple of things I do take issue to a couple of it.
Before you get it too deep into it, I need to throw the challenge flag. I need to throw the challenge flag because I'm going to disagree with you that I kind of liked WandaVision more.
Okay.
Not like as a standalone entity, I think that the Falcon and Winter Soldier was great. However, because it's part of the MCU and WandaVision is going to have more of an impact on the future of the MCU, or at least it seems that way right now. It to me, maybe it was just the tease at the end of WandaVision. What it set up for the future. Maybe that's why I'm recalling it more fondly than the Falcon and Winter Soldier. I mean, but I really did. I loved the series too. And I agree with a lot of all of those other things that you were saying, but I think that I don't know that I liked WandaVision more. Okay,
and that's fine. Yeah.
No. I will tell you what I don't like about either one of them is that I don't like the episodic nature and having to wait a week. I wish that
you want them to drop it all at once, like Netflix, right?
Yeah, I need that. Like it's one of the reasons why I don't read as much comic books anymore is because I don't like the serial nature of having to wait a week or wait a month for the next episode.
Right.
I like to read the trade so that I can consume as much of it as possible.
Right.
But yeah, no, it was hard to wait a week, especially like between episode 5 and 6, because episode 6 essentially just picks up right in the middle of the climax.
Right. Yeah. Well, and my wife would agree with you because she's the same way. She wants to see all the series. Like it's funny because, ever since we've been together through now, I remember like our watching patterns kind of went through like a really interesting cycle where, we would get like all the seasons on DVDs, right? And then Netflix came around and then, that's how we binge. And now she's like, I only do, digital, and I only want to watch all the I only want to watch the whole season if all the episodes are available. So she would, agree with you on that.
Has she watched The Falcon and Winter Soldier?
Yeah, she watched it with me. Yeah. So she has seen all of them. And I will say that, given my choice, like I would love to see it all back to back, but I also know that it's a pretty smart marketing move for Disney and Marvel because it's creating and generating a lot more buzz from the longer term, as opposed to when you look at, when Netflix drops everything all at once, it creates some buzz for like maybe a couple of weeks and then it kind of fizzles out. Whereas this, it's like, it's really smarter than my thing. I think it's really effective, but I'm with you in that I'd rather just see it all in a row. But I didn't mind having it drop like week by week, because then I can actually participate in discussions with other people like you or other people on social media about the episodes too. They're
finding that perfect sweet spot between the streaming service and the traditional like television release format.
Right. So yeah, I agree.
All right. So, they touched on a lot of important stuff that we want to get into, especially some of the social issues that go along with what happened in episode 6 with Sam becoming Captain America.
Yeah.
So, I really felt that the show did a good job with tackling those issues and kind of it mirrored what's going on in the United States a little bit, but they did like touch on things directly. And I remember, I guess it was a second episode when they went to go visit Isaiah Bradley for the first time, that there was the issue with the police officer outside and they were harassing Sam. And then about a week later, I read an article that said, or that somebody had posted something that 80% of the country had turned their TVs off at that point. Like they could magically know that America wasn't going to stand for like this, that they were just perpetrating the myth that police officers harass black people at a disproportionate rate. Yeah. And it was something that's big on social media. Yeah. He had claimed that he could prove that like most of the people that were watching the episode turned it off at that point. And I was like, you don't know comic book fans very well, because that's not true.
Right.
Even when we don't like what we're seeing, we still stick it out. That's why DC's made so many movies. But
although Disney could probably actually back that up, because I'm sure they can track and see like when people, veered away
Disney
from
could,
that.
but I don't think for a second that it's true. You're assuming that 80% of the people in the United States are just so like caught off guard by the fact that the police officer wants to know why the black guy is harassing the white guy.
Right.
Like that they're arguing, but the only person that they are targeting is the black guy. That's not real enough for people that they're just going to turn it off. I doubt that.
I agree with that.
That's a farce.
Yeah.
But I think that all of those things, they kind of folded that into the story. They folded those elements into the story without it being specifically about racism in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
With the themes of the refugees wanting to find a place where they belong,
right,
and things like that. I think that spoke to the nature of our issues without calling out our issues so specifically.
Right. Yeah, and I agree, because I think what this show did, on a number of levels when it comes to having a dialogue about racism, is that there's so many directions I can go with this, but I think the really thing that I was impressed with the most is that it actually created like almost like a character development about racism throughout the entire series. And so like when you look at episode 1 and 2 and 3, like it's very subtle, which is how racism is now, right? I mean, people who think racism isn't a problem is because they always point to like how, this or that doesn't happen anymore. And those are like blatant racism. And they think that institutional racism isn't a thing, or that, subconscious bias is not a thing, right? But I mean, episode 2 was actually a perfect example and perfect way of how they sewed this into the conversation, is because the one scene that stuck with me the most is the same thing what you had said, is when they went to meet with Isaiah Bradley, and they open up with the two kids on the street that says, "Hey, it's a Black Falcon," and Sam's like, "I'm not Black Falcon, I'm just Falcon," and so they had that whole conversation. And then after he meets Isaiah Bradley and knows, who he is and what happened to him, then he immediately walks out and starts yelling at Bucky and saying, like, "You're telling me that we had a black superhero and no one even knew about it." And I can tell you right then and there that there are going to be some people that are going to say, like, well, that's very hypocritical of Sam to say, because he was talking about how, he's just Falcon, but now he's referring to the superhero as the black superhero. And I think they really missed the point that him being called the Black Falcon was because him being black had nothing to do with him being Falcon, right? But the fact that Isaiah Bradley was treated the way he was as a superhero all has to do with the fact that he was black.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where people, if they're making that argument that, that was hypocritical or, they're overreaching or whatever. And I think that was genius of Marvel to do, because that's where the subtle racism and those subtle conversations about how people of color experience racism are sewed into the conversations that we have daily. And that's why, people don't understand that, there are differences. And I think people want to make it black and white, and they don't realize that it's not black and white. It's very gray, but people of color have picked up on that a lot more because they experience it on a more regular basis, on an institutional basis, than people who are white. So,
yeah. I think there's a lot of what Sam is going through went through in the process of deciding to take up the mantle is bearing the weight of the shield, not like in a physical sense, but like in what it means in its iconicism, that that like he knew his rationale is that he knew that a major part of America wasn't going to be ready for him or didn't want him as Captain America, but that he also recognized there's a big part of America that needed him as Captain America. And the ownership of the shield kind of like comes into question there. Like, does it belong to the government? Steve gave it to Sam. And there's no like clear, like, who decides, right? Like who decides that he gets to be Captain America? He decided that he's Captain America, and he did it on his own terms. And that's not really any different than Steve. It's like Steve was a commissioned army officer, but like he struggled with those decisions on who decides. It's the arguments that led to Civil War. Like, who makes these tough decisions? And like, I think for Steve, it was always like, you have to trust yourself enough to make those tough decisions. And I think that that's finally the place where Sam got to.
Right. Well, and even when Steve Rogers, when he was Captain America, like it was a government propaganda at first, right? Like it wasn't like what we come to know and love today. And so Steve had to make Captain America his own. And that's what, Sam did in this series. And I think you hit right on the point of, him, bearing the weight of what it means to carry the shield. I think in the series, you saw that weight get heavier and heavier because of, the more that events were developing and more that he learns about Isaiah Bradley and everything else that's happening around the world and around America. I think you kind of see and sense that feeling, it's getting heavier for him. And so when he does take it up, then, it's a really powerful moment when he does.
Yeah. It's, I think it speaks a lot to the fact that there are probably situations all across the country every day where a supremely qualified black person or a person of color gets passed over for a job in favor of a white man. And, and at the very end, you see, you should have given me this job and it should have been me in the first place.
Right.
And
Isaiah Bradley and Steve Rogers, Captain America, is a prime example of that, race playing a role in that, right? Because Isaiah Bradley and Steve Rogers essentially did the same thing in that they disobeyed government orders and they went and saved their brothers in arms.
Right.
And what happened? Isaiah Bradley got thrown into jail, and Steve Rogers was commended and promoted and became, an actual active military
superhero,
member, right?
Yeah, military superhero, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Speaking of Isaiah Bradley, can I just say like how much like I love Carl Lumbly as that character? Like he's like, can we just pencil him in for an Emmy and a Golden Globe for like best supporting actor?
Oh, I know.
Like just seriously, like the depth that he brought to that character. So I love Carl Lumbly. And this is like my nostalgia talking, but he's the voice of Martian Manhunter on the Justice League series from the 90s.
Right.
And so like there's just like such like a presence that he brings that his voice like carries, but also like the emotion of like that he showed in that portrayal, not just that like the disappointment and the heartbreak of the way that he was treated, but also like through the embrace that he shared with Sam at the end with in front of the statue. So yeah, like big major props to whoever decided on casting Carl Lumbly and his performance.
Definitely. Have you so Isaiah Bradley's character is based on a Marvel comic series back in the 90s called Truth, Red, White, and Black.
Okay, I did not know that.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so that's where the character came in from, is that there is a comic book series that was written by two people of color. The writer, I believe, was of Afro-Puerto Rican descent, and then the artist is a Black American, and it was written in, I think, in the early 90s, if I remember correctly, maybe late 90s, or it could be actually early 2000s. So
it looks like it was from early 2003. It was written by
that's right,
written by Robert Morales and penciled by Kyle Baker.
Right. Yes. Exactly. And it was a seven series comic, and so when after I watched episode 2 and learned about Isaiah Bradley, I was like, okay, I got to go read the story. And honestly, it was probably one of the best series in Marvel that I've read. It was really fascinating. It was, it captured my attention. It brought in a lot of the elements that the Falcon and Winter Soldier was bringing in as well, too, in terms of, issues of racism and class inequities and things like that. And it's really fascinating and really awe-inspiring. So I would encourage anybody who's listening to this, if you haven't read Truth, Red, White, and Black, definitely go out and read it. You can read it on Marvel Unlimited if you have a digital description, or if you go to the library. I'm sure the library probably has it, especially now and everything. But it is a great story to read through and just really fascinating. And there's just a lot of elements that makes it a great story. So
apparently I'm looking online as we're talking about this. Apparently that comic is worth a fortune now because its relevance into the show. That always happens when they introduce a character into like a mass media show or movie. The first issue of that character in comic books goes sky high.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So
and what's interesting is that they pulled that inspiration from an actual event called the Tuskegee syphilis study, where what they did was they took Black African Americans and told them that they were getting treated for syphilis, but they really weren't, because they wanted to study and see what happened to syphilis and when it's left untreated. And that's kind of essentially where the comic book story kind of took that direction, where the African American troops were tested on and experimented on for the super soldier serum, because they wanted to make sure that it was safe to give their white military members too. So for the people that said like that would never happen, technically in history it did happen.
So here's the deal. At the end, and we can jump over to the things that we didn't like about it, but I just want to say that because it ties in directly to what you're talking about right now. The United States is not a great place. Like, it's the greatest country in the world. We all talk about that all the time, and it's really not that great. We have a terrible track record for things like this, but I think that's one of the high points of the Sam's decision making, is that he still recognizes it as a place that can be great based on what we put into it.
Right.
And those kinds of stories, we have far too many stories and that's a true story. The Tuskegee syphilis study, that really happened. That's not comic book fiction.
Right.
And this show absolutely is a reflection of what is really happening in our society. but like, dang it, it's up to us to be better. Like, we just got to do better.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly what Sam Wilson says, right?
We got to step up our game.
Right.
Yeah. I seriously want to get a bumper sticker that says my only superpower is knowing that we can be better.
Yeah. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of memorabilia that's going to be sold, with that quote, and I'm sure a lot of artists are going to use that quote as a inspiration.
I've got the first edition Sam Wilson Captain America action figure that I might think about selling to put my kids through college. See if it's worth something now. But
right.
Hey, so let's talk about some of the things that we weren't too high on with the show.
Right.
You got anything in particular that stuck out to you?
Yeah, so I mean, there's two things primarily. I overall love the series, love the show. It's it's my favorite one. I know WandaVision is still your favorite one. This has just been my favorite one that the MCU has put out so far. But the two issues I have, one is I felt like episode 6 was just rushed and poorly written.
Okay.
I think watching through it, I was kind of disappointed by the first time Sam Wilson said, "I'm Captain America," because he just jumped into battle and just kind of said it randomly to like a military person right next to him. I feel like there was not a whole lot of buildup. Like usually and this is, I'm pulling my experience from the comics, is that when they're taking a new mantle, like for example, Captain Marvel, when Carol Danvers took on the mantle, you kind of saw that internal struggle, which you saw with episode 5. But then when she like claims it, it's a huge deal. And I felt like this kind of missed that mark.
That's usually the splash page of the next issue.
Right.
Like he's got the flag and he's planting it in the ground. He's like, I'm Captain America. And they kind of missed their like iconic hero moment.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just felt like everything was just kind of really rushed and thrown in. And I think someone made the point that it was probably supposed to be a couple more episodes and they had to cut it short because of COVID. And so that probably makes sense. But it just wasn't my favorite in terms of development, because I feel like everything was just kind of, thrown in and resolved quickly at the end.
Yeah.
And they just had to like say like, here's the outcome, boom, instead of letting it kind of unfold, Well,
For the sake of character development, I liked that it was 6 episodes. Like, because you got into a lot of it. You really got to explore the chemistry between Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan's characters, the Falcon and Winter Soldier, and Daniel Bruhl as Zemo. Like Zemo was a high point for me. Like they made him a more 3-dimensional character in this series.
Oh yeah.
And he became more likable. Like you understood what he was going through before, because he was fraught with heartbreak over the loss of his family, but like now you kind of understand his personality a little bit more, and the role that he plays in the series is pretty great.
Right.
On the flip side of that, I'd have been happy if they'd have trimmed a lot of that stuff and just made it a 2 hour and 15-minute movie.
Right. Yeah.
Because there were times where it seemed like it dragged a little bit. But there were also times where, man, I wish they'd have spent more time on that.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's how everyone felt like when they watched the show. It's just like, it feels like, this is a movie like chunked out basically, which is good, because then that tells you it's cinematic and that it hit its goal. Right.
But I'm telling you, I am shell shocked and I'm triggered still. And I know that I've mentioned this about 17 times. We've only done 30 episodes of the show, and I've mentioned this at least on half of the episodes, but the ending of Game of Thrones has like ruined television for me, because like you get to the end and you're afraid they're just going to drop the ball.
Right.
Like you're riding a high, and you admitted it. Episode 6 was maybe one of the weakest episodes. But you're riding that high. You love these characters. You cannot wait to see what happens next. And then they're like, boom, 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 bang, 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 story over.
Right. Right.
And so,
I know.
And because we're in the situation we're in with like the delayed development of things, the rollout of things, we're not like, we have to wait a long time to the next thing that we're going to get. I mean, it could be 3 years before we see. Like, honest to goodness, it could be 3 years before we see, like, the Captain America pop up in the MCU again.
Right. Which,
just because
they've already confirmed that they're making a Captain America 4 movie.
Absolutely. I'd love to see Captain America 4. I think Sam Wilson Captain America deserves his own movie.
Yep. And just for anything, just so Anthony Mackie can go and, point at Tom Holland and laugh in his face and be like, who is laughing now?
Exactly.
Right.
They definitely need to tie that in. Anthony Mackie's Sam Wilson is its own entity separate from the characterization that he has in the comics. He's a little bit more stoic in the comics.
Right. Right.
But the chemistry he might be the catalyst of the chemistry within the Marvel community of like actors and whatnot, because it just seems like he was in Ant-Man. His scene in Ant-Man is so good. Yeah. It's so funny. And it's like everybody that they pair him with, he just has a lot of chemistry, and it's amazing.
Right. I know. I agree.
So, hey, you know what I didn't like?
What?
I didn't like Sharon Carter as the power broker. I think that was weak sauce.
That was the other thing I was going to say too. Yeah. Now, why did you not like her end up being the power broker?
Because I don't understand her mindset for like betraying her country, or like if it's about money. Like I don't understand her motivation for it. But also, I think it was poorly. Okay, so I always feel like the Marvel Cinematic Universe always knows what they're going to do next. And I feel like they were like, let's put this twist in it, but they didn't really know where it was going to go, because in episode 3, she actually sends them to the scientist that has the super soldier serum, and it ends up costing her the super soldier serum. Does that make sense to you? Like, that's a huge plot hole, is that she sent Zemo specifically, who wants to do away with all super soldiers, to the place where they could do away with the super soldier serum. And to me, it's a glaring plot hole that doesn't make sense. Now, it'd be interesting to see what happens in the future. Like, she's a double agent or whatever. Maybe she's really a Skrull, like Secret Invasion.
That's what people are saying.
Yeah, I hadn't read that yet, but it just occurred to me like that she could be pretending.
Right.
But then again, the Skrulls, they haven't shown the Skrulls as, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they haven't been nefarious. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, especially this twist, right? Because in the comics, they've been nefarious, but in the MCU so far, they haven't. They've been really helpful and the good guys. So let me go back to what you said about that being the plot hole for Sharon Carter being the power broker and her sending Zemo over to her scientist. I actually think that makes a lot of sense for her as a power broker to do that. And here's why, is because the scientist pretty much said that he was working on the formula, and then the Flag Smashers took all the samples, and so like he couldn't do anything, right? And so as the power broker, what use do you have of him if he can't do anything with it? And I know she was trying to get the serum back, but I think she also found out and knew that they took all the serum, that there wasn't any left at that point, right? And so she probably set it up so that she knows that Zemo would probably kill him, because she knows that he doesn't want any more super soldiers. And so since she doesn't have a need for it, she probably found that as an opportunity. Right, exactly.
So maybe she is more nefarious than we realize, and she's the puppeteer pulling strings.
Right. But I agree with you. Like I don't think it makes sense with everything that we see in the MCU, like why she's doing that as of right now, but
it's too much of a reversal of character from what she's shown before.
It is, but I think the fact that you point to the, I think because you point to the fact that they haven't really explained why she's doing this, I think that's probably purposeful, because that tells me that probably down the future, they're going to either explain why that's happening. And that's probably why they haven't really explained it, is because they want to kind of leave that open for like a future like movie or series or something like that to explain. But I agree with you. It just does not seem very characteristic of Sharon Carter to do that, you know, with everything that you've seen her in the MCU do. So,
and of course, she plays a major role in the comic book story with the death of Captain America. We actually find out that she's the person responsible for killing Captain America.
Right.
And so I think there's a lot of places where they could go, but I just it doesn't make sense yet.
Right.
In if that were like revealed over the course of the series, it would have been better. But to like reveal it at the end and then make you wait for what may be 2-3 years to find out where that storyline goes, that's just a hard pill to swallow.
I know. Yeah.
But that's every like major storyline in comics is like that. When you get to the end of like the Phoenix saga, or you get to the end of Captain America and the Winter Soldier, like that run on the comic books, and the Captain America goes right into Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
Right after Civil War, Captain America dies, and then you realize that segues right into Secret Invasion.
Right.
They always do that to you. You think it's the end of the story. On the last page, they tease some figure in the shadows or whatever, and then they suck you into the next thing. So
right.
That's worked in comics for decades and decades, and now it apparently works for Marvel's shows on television.
Right. Yep. Agreed.
But hey, I'm stoked. Let's kick it up. Let's get Loki released. Let's go. I'm gonna have a Black Widow watch party at my house. I'm gonna barbecue and put it on the screen in the backyard. Maybe sit some lawn chairs and just make an afternoon of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's, considering that we're in the position that we are in, with having dealt with the pandemic for the last year and kind of coming out of it, hopefully coming out of it. Like, I don't want to put my eggs in that basket before they hatch, but it seems like with the vaccine and stuff that we're making progress, and that these shows are coming along right at the right time, that we can build momentum, that we can kind of get back to normalcy. And let's face it, for nerds like us, like, MCU movies are part of the normalcy of our lives. So
right. Oh yeah, definitely. Well, and I know that I know everyone's been wanting that, because last year we didn't have anything. We were supposed to have Black Widow and the Eternals last year, and because of COVID, they all got postponed. And so I know everyone was itching for it. So when WandaVision ended and set everything up for the MCU, I know everyone's just itching for it, is begging for it. And I think that's what made Disney realize that they should probably make sure they postpone Black Widow one more time. But I think that's what made them realize, like, let's make sure that we get this out, because if we do this anymore, then the shows that are coming out are probably going to mess some things up. Because that's some of the theories that people are saying about Julia Louis-Dreyfus showing up in the show,
that she was probably meant to show up in Black Widow first. Yeah, right. I was trying to explain that to Madden too, that was maybe why her appearance was so like, hey, I'm here, but you don't really know who I am.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which, I mean, it still worked, but
because she's supposed to be mysterious in nature. So
right. Exactly. Yeah. So
couldn't have worked better if I planned it myself. Maybe I did.
Or did I? Yeah. Right. Exactly. So yeah, I think it's just, Disney realizing that, we can't postpone it, but people are wanting this, based on the reactions and the success of WandaVision and everything. I think that's why they end up deciding to go ahead and release it June 9th as a firm date, and that we're going to release it as Disney Plus, so that way we could still...
It's July 9th, right, though?
Yeah. Is that what I said?
You said June. But it's
I said June? I meant July.
Yeah.
Yeah, so July 9th. So, but yeah.
Let everybody have their 4th of July celebrations, and then the following weekend you can cozy up next to your loved ones and watch Black Widow. All right. Well, hey, there's lots of great MCU stuff down the horizon, and we're looking forward to that, just because we're dorks and because who love that stuff, but also because it gives us something to talk about on this podcast. So,
right.
Hey, that wraps up another episode of The Caption Life. We hope that you enjoyed listening to us. Hey, don't forget to smash that subscribe button on whatever podcast platform you're listening to, and you can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Caption Life. If you like what we're doing, give us a shout out, tag us in your post, and for more information about us and all of our previous episodes, please visit podpage.com/thecaptionlife. Until next time, we'll see you.
Peace out.